In the world of Hollywood, movies get greenlit and redlit. They get remade and rebooted. But we are the ideal. I'm Sam Gasch, and you are listening to Ideal Remake. Thank you for listening to Ideal Remake. We take movies that either have been, will be, or should be remade and talk about what the ideal version of that remake would be. Today's movie is a tough one, so I'm sending in my best guest. And when we roll across the 59th Street Bridge tomorrow, on our way to freedom, we're gonna have that guest leading the way. So, Kevin Mosteller, is Escape from New York a movie that has been, will be, or should be remade?
It has not been remade yet. There have been probably 100 imitations of it, the most recent, the 2012 film Lockout. And there has been a proposed remake that is in development hell, has been since 2008.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Like, last we heard anything on it, it was Robert Rodriguez was attached to direct, and I think Jude Law was going to play Snake Plissken at one point.
That, I don't hate that, but I also don't love it.
Yeah, everybody was, it I think got the reception of a eye roll and a groan when they announced it, which is why it never got made.
Yeah.
But, up to this point, has not been remade yet.
I mean, I don't have anything against Jude Law. I think he's good for a number of things. I've recast him in a number of things, but like, I don't. I never think he's great as like the leading man. I always think he's good as like the villain or this side character, or literally in like 8 movies, the character that the main character is stealing the identity of.
Right. And he's like a really great just character actor.
Yeah.
But I don't see him being like an anti-hero like Snake Plissken.
No.
It's just, and he's a hard character to kind of crack too. So.
Well, I look forward to talking about that. But
yeah,
for anyone who, you've been on the show more than anyone, we were just saying that, but just in case this is the first time any of the listeners are hearing your voice, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself, Kevin?
Well, I'm a filmmaker, a writer, and composer. Since the great pandemic shutdown of 2020, I've been really focusing on film scores, and I've got a few in the bank right now, ready to go. Beyond that, I've made a couple horror films of my own. This film was, to me, kind of a huge inspiration. It turned me on to John Carpenter, who is like, I feel like John Carpenter is my generation's Alfred Hitchcock, where we all kind of like, you know, everybody worships Hitchcock, but like all the people that I knew were totally into John Carpenter movies. And we're like, I want to be this guy. This is why we go to film school. We write, direct, we do the music, everything. So this one was a big one for me.
Good.
In getting me started and on a path of writing, directing, and making film scores and all that good stuff.
I think the Alfred Hitchcock comparison is fair, because like even though we treat all these Hitchcock movies as high art, they were kind of the pop movies of the day. And John Carpenter's movies are very like they cover a couple of different genres, but they're also very like the pop movie, but like kind of perfecting that genre.
I agree with that 100%. He was great at making thriller horrors. I know Carpenter himself. I'm a bit of a nerd. Carpenter himself had really preferred to compare himself to director Howard Hawks instead of Alfred Hitchcock. But yeah, I strongly agree that he's definitely crossed a lot of genres and brought a lot to it that we kind of took for granted for a little while there, even though he's made some serious stinkers.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. Village of the Damned, Ghost of Mars, not good films.
I don't have a film degree or have a good sense of like film history, but I'm sure Hitchcock has stinkers too. It would be weird if he didn't.
Absolutely, yeah. His last film, I think, is it Family Plot? I think it's called Family Plot. Oh man.
I mean,
Try sitting through that one. It's rough.
Oof. Fair.
Yeah. He was dialing it in towards the end there, really banking on his name. Just selling everything.
Plus, my understanding is that he wasn't a good person. So,
I've heard that as well.
When did you first see Escape from New York?
I first saw Escape from New York in about 1994 or 5, roughly. Mm-hmm. I know I've talked about this a few times on the podcast, but before Netflix, before streaming and all that, there was the video store, and that was your Saturday night. And I cannot express the disappointment you felt after you convinced your parents to drive you all the way to the video store, you got there and the video you wanted was checked out, gone. So your parents ain't going to drive you to another video store just to find that movie. So they were like, find something else, kid, and hurry up. For me, this one, I was walking through the action aisle about 1994, 95, and saw the video cover with the famous poster with the, it's like sideways at a Dutch angle, and the head from the Statue of Liberty is sitting in the middle of, Wall Street Avenue or whatever. I saw that and it just captured my imagination. And I took the movie home and it captured my imagination even more. I was at the time a music student in school as well. Like, I'd learned trumpet and I was learning piano, and I was bored with both instruments. Like, what am I ever going to do with this, right? I heard the opening to Escape from New York and I was like, this is what you can do with a piano? Suddenly I was like excited about music. Like, it just captured my imagination, the way it was shot, the music, the story, the great anti-hero, the comedic sidekicks. It was just a lot of fun.
That's amazing. And I remember the last time you were on the show, you were like, well, the next time we talk, we're talking about Escape from New York. So this is the first time I've seen the movie. And I was kind of texting you as I was watching it, just because I was like, I kind of went in knowing nothing. Like, I've had a couple...
Which is the best way to go into this movie.
Yeah. There are a couple movies where, like, you can find out more about it. Yeah, give yourself some expectations. But I think for this one, it's just like, no. There's like, right at the beginning of the movie is like, here's what this movie's about to be about. And you're like, great. I wouldn't have needed to talk to anyone about that.
Right.
I've had that experience recently with a couple of other movies of just like, going in blind, let's see what happens.
And it is kind of the best way to watch a movie like this, because it is so kind of like left field, and of course very dated now, unfortunately. But
sure,
a lot of fun.
Very dated, but like super dated, but in like this was definitely made in the 80s, but the future 80s. It's like the retro futuristic aesthetic from the 50s. It's like, well, this was clearly from the 50s, but in the future, but it's from the 50s.
Exactly. And I do hate the fact that John Carpenter was right about a lot of things in a lot of his films.
Yeah.
He's kind of like, and he was laughed at the time by a lot of it, especially with the sequel to this movie. They kind of laughed him out of Hollywood with Escape from L.A., and then like 4 years later, they elected George Bush, who was essentially the president in Escape from L.A.
Yeah, well, I've had conversations with people who worked on Idiocracy, and they're like, yeah, it's weird, right?
Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable that he was so prophetic.
Yeah, well, Simpsons did it. But so that's why I'm going to say now, like, if you're someone who has kind of had the temptation, hey, maybe I should watch Escape from New York at some point, pause the podcast, go watch the movie, and then come back. Because we're going to go through it. And honestly, I think just for the full experience of, like, watching this movie and just being surprised by some of the crazy stuff that's going to happen, let yourself have that moment. And so I'm going to give you a couple seconds. All right, let's assume everyone is back. So, girl in Chock Full O Nuts, huh?
That was Kurt Russell's wife at the time, believe it or not.
Was it really?
Yes, that is the only reason that the girl in the Chock Full O Nuts existed. was.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and mind you, Kurt Russell was not really a star at this time either. This was his first kind of like macho man action hero role. Before this, he was a Disney kid. He was in like The Computer That Wore Tennis Shoes, or like the World's Strongest Man. He was essentially like a Disney kid on, what you would see in the live action Disney films. To give you context, Escape from New York in 1981 opened against his other film, which was Fox and the Hound. So
wait, what? Who was he in Fox and the Hound?
He was the Hound in Fox and the Hound. He was the voice, yeah.
That's
he was
amazing.
The voice actor.
That's hilarious.
And the studio did not want Kurt Russell because they thought he was some Disney kid. And they were like, there's no way this nerd from Disney is going to be this cool anti-hero. And so, like, this was Kurt Russell's, like, I got to step it up, man. And boy, did he. I love
it. It's his wrecking ball.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, it is his wrecking ball. Swinging naked with an eye patch.
I mean, sorta. He takes his shirt off and there's a snake coming out of his pants.
I know. I mean, how more literal can you get?
I mean, it basically is like, call me Snake. So you have a tattoo implying that your dick is a snake. Yeah. So your name is Penis. Shut up.
I like to go by Dick sometimes.
Yeah. This is unrelated, but did you wear your New York shirt on purpose for this?
I did.
I like it, and full marks, and deserve to be mentioned. I'm just wearing one of my gamer shirts.
Yeah, that's a good one. I rarely break this out. I'm horrible with white clothing. I just, one of the reasons I'm always clad in black is because it hides the shit that falls out of my mouth. Sorry.
No, it's great. I love it. It's an amazing visual.
Mm-hmm. That's why I said it.
And I'm glad we're leaving the summer so that you can finally get back to the color palette you prefer.
Ass. I'm very happy with that as well.
Which I should mention, so one of the things that they in this movie is kind of like the political nature of everything's so bad, crime is so bad that it's we had to isolate all of New York, the worst crime city. So I should mention that this is going to be the first episode that's going to drop post-election.
Ah, okay. Oh, this will be a lot of fun then.
Yeah. And, this is going to be the first November episode. And considering the first episode that I think you were on was the one where I always want to call it All the President's Men, but it's actually called
My Fellow
Americans. Just a real political theme that we're keeping going, and I appreciate it.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Absolutely.
Especially with a movie like this.
Yeah.
Because it's so weirdly dystopian.
Yeah, so hopefully we're all in a good mood. But basically, this is a movie kind of inspired by the Reaganomics of, we gotta be tough on crime. This is this is what happens when you're not tough on crime. It gets this bad and you have to shut down New York.
It is, and it's worth mentioning, too, that when this movie was made, New York had not become... It hadn't reinvented itself yet. It was like the punk rock New York, where everything was trashed, half the buildings were bombed out, the city was bankrupt. It was more like what Detroit is now than what we think of New York is. This was pre-Giuliani coming in and turning Times Square into Disneyland.
Yeah.
So it definitely... wasn't as much of a stretch to them just being like, you know what, shut it all down. It's becoming a prison. Now that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
But...
Well, yeah, but honestly, there are people who still believe that this is kind of where things would be going. And they'd be like, well, we got to give more money to the jail so that we can house the people who need to be in jail, as opposed to, hey, it sucks for these people. Maybe we should help them before they put themselves in a position where they would need to go to jail. But that's
exactly.
That's just my leftist politics leaking in.
Well, that's okay because they're yes-anded over here. I really, one of the things that I always latched onto was this omnipresent, and it's great that he slowly kind of just tapered it in a little bit. That there is a United States police force that is like a freaking army, and they're just soldiers.
Yeah.
Watching over the country. And the minute they catch you doing something, this is where you go, whether it's, stealing money to buy some food for your family, or there's that lovely song in the middle of the movie about everybody coming to New York because you stole a buck or whatever.
Yeah. Which was interesting because the movie came out in 81, right? Mm-hmm. But it says it takes place in 1988, which is 7 years in the future.
No, it starts in 1988. That's when the crime rate rises.
Ah, okay.
The film takes place in 1997.
Okay. So it takes place 16 years in the future instead
16.
of... It was a very 80s thing to put things slightly in the future, but not that far in the future.
It was, and I feel like a lot of that was politics as well, as okay, so this is where we're going if we don't turn things around right now. This is where we could potentially head, and it's pretty dark.
Well, I was also going to say that it's also very... I was going to say it's optimistic in the sense that, just going from, let's say, 1945, 1950 up to 1980, 1985, there is a massive explosion of technology.
Mm-hmm.
And
that is true.
If you presume that massive explosion of technology will continue, there's no reason not to, and to think that it would continue in the same style instead of because I would say technology has had a massive explosion since then. Even just cell phones in general, just in the past 10 years have been insane.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just like an expectation of an explosion of technology similar to what you're used to because you can't conceive of where it's actually going to go.
Yeah, and especially the phones are definitely an interesting one. That was a left turn that I think nobody could predict, right?
Right.
Like who would have thought we'd be staring into this magic box 90% of our day?
Yeah, I mean, the Simpsons joke is that like I predicted in the future computers will be 5 times as big and they will fill up city blocks and they will be able to run at 5 gigabits per second.
Right, and there's a different movie that I just watched called Johnny Mnemonic, where like the whole premise is Keanu Reeves is a data smuggler.
Oh yeah.
His brain capacity is only like 100 gigabytes or something like that. And I was like, the joke always being, of course, like, oh yeah, Keanu's brain can only smuggle 100 gigabytes. I believe it. But,
that's a good movie to add to my list of things to eventually do a remake of because I think that'd be fun.
Oh, I'd be down. That's it. I don't want to get on a tangent, but it's bizarrely parallel for 2021.
Love it. All right, so put a pen in that. But like, all right. So the basic premise of this movie is that New York's a giant jail. Everyone who lives there is basically prisoners. And then there's a giant wall. You escape. If you try to escape, they shoot you.
Yep.
But a radical hippie movement takes over Air Force One, and it goes down in the city. The president escapes in a pod. Everyone else on the plane dies. And now this person who just got checked into jail, Snake Plissken, a former army something, a former army hero who went dark.
He was like special forces or something like that.
Yeah.
And he robbed the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
And now here he is.
In jail.
About to kick your ass out of the world, war hero.
And so they're like, they give him a deal where he can leave jail if he goes and rescues the president. Because why not just get a new president? Yeah, but he's needed for some sort of something conference, something.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, and again, it's only lightly touched on, but it was supposed to be like a nuclear fission thing. It was supposed to bring peace to the world, peace between these warring nations. And really the reason, I think he even says, get a new president or something like that. Maybe I'm confusing it with the sequel. I don't know. Anyway, it turns out that there's a tape that has secret information on it that is the real subject of what has to come back in order for him to get his pardon. Not so much the president, it's what's on this tape.
Yeah. So I have a logistics question for you, because I think we can all agree the best character in this movie is Cabby.
I agree. Yeah.
Who, if this escalation in jail time started in 1988 and the movie takes place in 1997, one of the lines Cabby says is, I've been driving this same cab for 30 years, which means he's been driving it since 1967. Mm-hmm. Which means that either he's someone who was living in New York and stayed in New York when it became a jail, or he got sent to jail with his cab also.
Yeah, I mean, it's never really explained. I always assumed that, like, one of two scenarios with Cabby, right? He's one of those guys who was like, I'm never leaving, this is my home.
Yeah.
You know, when there's like a hurricane or something, like, I don't care. Or he was a guy who was a cab driver in the 60s. New York turned into a prison. He left. He got caught for doing something that he shouldn't have been doing, got sent back, found his cab. I don't know. Could have been one of the two. Doesn't really explain it. I don't necessarily need to explain it either.
I don't think you need an explanation, but I'm just thinking, like, there's got to be a separate movie out there about someone who's, like, just been, like, oh, God, his life is just, he's just been stuck. Ernest Borgnine driving this cab, and he's, like, he's in his early 30s, and he's just so tired of it. And he's, like, he just abandons it on the side of the road one day. He's like, I gotta go do something else. And his life takes him in crazy places, but it also takes him down a life of crime and drugs and whatever. And
total dark path.
Yeah. And eventually he's caught and he's sent to jail. And he ends up in jail, which is this whole city, and he ends up finding the only thing in his life that brings him comfort of the way things were when they were slightly not as bad. He finds his cab.
His old 50s Chevy cab.
Yeah. I'm like, that's well, maybe not a movie. That's a 20-minute short.
I'd watch it.
Yeah.
I'd watch it as a full movie, sure. Prequel to Escape from New York, but it's not the prequel you were expecting.
Well, you don't call it Escape from New York. You just call it, you can't call it Taxi either.
Cabby.
Yeah. Cabby, the dark history.
Path to New York.
Yeah, that's it. Cabby, Path to
Road
New York.
to New York. Yeah, Road to New York.
Road to New York. Good, I love it.
Highway to New York.
Oh, man. It wasn't a cash cab. It was a... oh, no.
Crime cab.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's...
It was the last cab he thought he'd ever see again. Oh man. So how would you sum up, like, we kind of have now, like, kind of premise, now the movie's happening. How would you sum up what happens in the movie?
I would. It definitely. That's a hard one. It really is a different film. Really, it is a journey. It is almost a western in a weird way.
Yeah, it is. I would agree with that.
It is and I think by John Carpenter's own admission, that it was kind of a western. It basically kind of the lone hero who comes in and finds himself in a situation and has to navigate this strange kind of dystopian future in search of what happens with the president. And the prisoners are trying to break free from New York because they don't like the fact that they've been locked in this kind of city playground. He meets some friends along the way, help him on his journey, and eventually he winds up finding the president and
sacrificing all of those friends completely
just to get the president across the bridge and over the wall. Which really, one of my favorite moments in this movie is the end when, like, he went through it and Snake asks him for a moment of his time and he's just like, I just want to ask you, like, a lot of people died to get you here. What do you think? And he's just kind of blasé, like, oh, well, this nation, thanks them for their sacrifice, for their great sacrifice. And he just, like, flicks a cigarette at him and walks away. One of my favorite moments in that movie is just like, yeah.
Because
right,
even after all of this, he's still a really shitty politician.
Exactly. It's like, well, that was almost for nothing then.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, the other crazy thing is, like, so towards the end of the movie, they're in this cab, desperately driving towards the wall, where they're going to try to get the president over. But there's Cabby, there's Brain, and there's Maggie, who all also assume that they also get to leave.
Right.
And
yeah, Cabby, Brain, yeah, that's it. Yeah, there's only 4 of them.
And Snake. And they never made any deal with the president. There's never any, like, spoken agreement. It's just like, why wouldn't the president just think, oh yeah, they're my guards getting me to the thing, and then they can stay in jail?
I have a feeling that that's what he was thinking as well. And I think Snake was just kind of gaslighting him. Like, yeah, help me out. And sure, you can come over the wall too. Why not? Yeah.
I think when it had been like they were all going to escape in the glider, then yeah, because they would have been in the glider. They would have gotten out. Right. But then once that was destroyed by, quoting from the movie, the Indians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a little...
It was so close to not being that bad.
Yeah, and I'm not defending that either. I do think there was a little influence from the Warriors, which came out before this.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it's like a gang of people who have adopted this title.
Exactly,
but who
dress the part and...
Just, like, rival dystopian gangs. But, like, for me, like, they're driving to the wall, and then they have to get, like, winched up.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be. I was surprised that Snake got pulled over. I assumed it'd be like, thanks, Snake, bye.
Exactly. And there is that moment where he stops the winch or whatever, and you do think Snake's just gonna, like, all right, well, now he's screwed.
Yeah.
They're not letting him back.
And then, of course, the president shoots the Duke, which is so weird.
Yeah, it's a little dark. Gets pretty dark. However, if you do have a president like we have now, not much of a stretch.
Yeah.
Really conservative, macho man who had been, held captive or whatever by this person. Again, I'm not a choice I'm defending, but... Also, not much of a stretch.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was much of a stretch. I kind of spent a lot of the movie being like, look at this McConnell-looking motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly. He was perfect. He was a perfect choice to play that president.
Excellent casting.
Yeah.
Man, it was dark. So, the other thing that we need to talk about is we need to talk about the Duke, because I feel like the Duke in this movie is kind of the same sort of character that oh crap, now I'm blanking on his name. The guy from Demolition Man, the bad guy, the actor.
Wesley Snipes?
Yeah, Wesley Snipes. I kept thinking like Weston something. Yeah. So Wesley Snipes, it's the same sort of character as Wesley Snipes. And this is like, Demolition Man came out in the 90s, and this is like, it was like right after the LA riots in 1993. And so there was like this whole concept of the scary black man. But like, honestly, the Duke from this movie from 1981 is also the concept of the scary black man.
Yes.
And it's just like, man, white people have been scared of black people for a really long time.
Yeah.
Who's gonna run a jail colony? Well, clearly this sadistic black person,
Isaac Hayes.
Yeah, who
quite the teddy bear from all accounts.
Like,
and really,
even
like,
just watching the movie, I'm like, this guy seems nice.
Yeah. Isaac Hayes was a great dude by all accounts. Wrote, seriously, my favorite soul album ever written. I recommend it. Go listen. Hot Buttered Soul by Isaac Hayes. So good. So good. Not an ounce of hatred in that thing. But yeah, he was imposing, and that's what the character was.
Yep.
Really, just scary black dude.
Yeah.
And
just straight out of Central Casting.
Yeah, I know. And again, I can't defend that.
Nope.
All we can do is give it a better shot here.
It's like this is a movie that is 100% a product of its time, and yet
absolutely,
yet also timeless.
Yeah, I know, it's weird that way, and it's again dated. Like they land on the roof of the World Trade Center. Like it's there are things that were very much of its time, and also you watch it now and you're like, I don't mind. It's still a blast to watch.
Yeah, I would still call it a fun movie, but it's just like you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Exactly. And just to touch on that, there were a ton of like imitations that were done after this with the same kind of scary black man role as the villain. Like I think the Bronx Warriors was one of them, and the bad guy was Fred Williamson, football player, who was just kind of doing the same thing Isaac Hayes was. He was just chewing the scenery that was given to him. Yeah. And
Hollywood setting the example for the country for decades to follow. Just being like, hey, you know this fear in the hearts of suburban America? You've been right this whole time.
Pretty much.
I mean, kind of, yeah. It's just weird. So, with that in mind, when do you want to set this movie?
I would say if we were talking about this in the 90s, I would say way in the future. But the way things have been going now, I would say 16 years probably is not too far off from
I mean, the 10-year deadline on climate change is less than that from now. So, like, I mean, I think setting it 16, 17 years in the future is kind of reasonable.
Yeah, again, now it's definitely something I can see happening in a failed city.
Yeah.
A bankrupt city. I don't necessarily know if it would be New York.
I mean,
probably more likely Detroit.
I can give us a reason for it to be New York, even though New York has amazing public transportation. When you think of New York City streets, they are clogged with cars.
Absolutely.
So if there's,
and I love New York, so yeah, let's do it.
We could very easily make this Escape from Detroit, especially because Detroit is also a major polluter.
Right.
And like, especially because I think we should kind of have an edge of like climate things, and in terms of, well, we couldn't do any more construction because construction would release even more fumes into the atmosphere and just make things even worse. So we had to shut down cities, like some of the worst cities.
Right. We had to wall off the river because it's toxic now. Yeah. The Hudson has gotten to the point where it is, you can't be in it without getting sick. And then that would kind of, if they did put a big dam wall there, that would that would give the reason for a Statue of Liberty Island Control Center, and B, a dam like the Sepulveda Dam.
I can even give us another reason to have the Statue of Liberty collapse, even though it's way out in the middle of the bay. Of acid rain corroded the copper, and then causing it to fall over, and then it floated and ended up beaching itself on the New York city skyline.
Manhattan docks or something.
Because that's how giant copper statues work, right? They float?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they float, and they eventually beach themselves. Yeah, like Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Like, everyone knows that.
Yeah, come on. Acid rain is it's definitely the number one eater of copper.
Yeah. I don't even know if that works on copper, but I assume it does.
I don't either, but we're going to go with it for this movie where New York is a prison anyway.
Yeah, basically. I mean, the whole purpose is that it's like, it's island, like Manhattan Island or whatever, like that thing, and they just like break all the bridges, can't get in the water, you'll die.
Yeah. It's actually relatively easy to wall off, if you think about it. If you go right through the bridges, no way in, no way out.
So one of the things they never talk about in the movie that I feel like we should talk about, because I think it's also funny and it would also show a complete disregard for human life, is they never talk about how the prisoners get dropped off.
Yeah, that is true.
Like, they never, like, put a parachute on them and drop them out of a plane. They're like, because I feel like if a truck drove in, eventually that truck's just going to get beaten up, taken over, and, like, taken back out.
Right, in the same way that when that helicopter came in, there was a bunch of guys waiting for him.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to remember. There was more of that in the sequel. That was like a deportation center, and there was a boat or something like that.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, it's been a while.
So what I want to do is put them in a gel pod or capsule or something.
Just drop them in.
And literally put them in a giant cannon and fire them into the city. And like, there's a 1 in 20 chance that the person dies, but there's a 19 in 20% chance that, or a 19 out of 20 chance that they won't.
Exactly. And I mean, we're kicking them out anyway, so why not?
They're criminals.
Yeah.
And
they're not worth it, basically, is what we're saying by.
And so I want to treat this in the same way that, like, that's also how they drop off supplies, because it's still jail and they still like don't want these people to like starve to death and eat each other.
It is. However, they don't really touch it. The only time that they touch on that in the original film is when there are the crazies who come out that are cannibals.
Yeah. People who come up out of the ground and steal the woman at a Chock Full O Nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
And
just still such a funny visual.
Yeah, it's hilarious and I love it. But like in my head, it's just like there's just regular cannon fire into the city. And when it lands, people get over there because they're like, it's either going to be food or someone or another mouth to feed. But you won't know unless you're the first one there. Because
it really is almost survival of the fittest the minute you land on that island.
Yeah. And especially like if everything's broken up into gangs, you control the food, you feed your gang, and that's something that can be bartered, or it's someone who you can immediately draft into your gang.
Exactly. Or if they're coward, there could be, dinner for the next week or so.
Absolutely.
It definitely, I guess, depends on the nature of the criminal. I do like that idea, and I think the pod that you launch with people should also be the supply pod as well. That way, when they land, it is almost an immediate shock of like, here's this, all these people descending on this thing, not just for food, but for new recruits, or you could wind up being food yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't warn anyone inside. Like, in my head, I picture kind of like the pod that the president got into, like the escape pod from the airplane.
Yeah, supposedly that's a real thing. Supposedly there is a escape pod on the Air Force One, yeah.
Weird.
It's also in the Harrison Ford classic Air Force One.
Yes, I have seen that one, but I don't remember.
I haven't seen... Anyway.
Yeah.
Different movie.
Yeah. But yeah, so like... And that's kind of like how that functions. And like you can have the rival gangs and their names can be based on like the section of New York that they control.
Yeah, I like that better than like the early 80s. Like, oh no, it's the crazies. It's the skulls, man. Here come the skulls. Instead, we can have Soho or,
Yeah. I mean, just take the gargoyle approach.
Yeah.
But like, I also like the idea of there being different communities, because that's what would happen within the criminals that spring up and with what that they can provide to the society. Like, we get there, and one of the first places Snake Plissken goes to is like a cabaret.
Right.
That's the first time he sees Cabby.
On Broadway or something? That wasn't Broadway, but it was, it was...
Around it. It was off-Broadway.
It was an off-Broadway production of Everybody's Coming to New York.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite parts of the movie. A bunch of guys in drag, blowing kazoos, you know.
I took a picture of my TV when I was watching that. I sent it to you. I was like, what is happening? And...
You gotta be entertained even if you're in prison, man. I mean, what else are you doing with your time? you kill people, you cook dinner, what else are you doing? Right,
but like I would love it if there's like just different levels of cannibalism. Like people, like the pods will land in different areas.
Sure.
And like I like the idea of like if they land in Brain's area, his group is very refined and very like we don't eat people. Sure, we might take their foot, or we'll use them to bribe other gangs, but we don't eat them.
They're more of a bargaining chip than they are anything.
Yeah,
you know?
And then I would say whatever area of Manhattan used to be the super high end ritzy area of Manhattan,
like Central Park area or something.
Like where the fancy people used to live.
Yeah, like. I think the like $2 million condos above the park, right? Where John Lennon used to live. And all
that's where I would put the cannibals.
Yeah. So Central Park, cannibals. Yeah. Cannibal Town. Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. Central Park and the subway. I think the subway is a pretty great, I guess meat locker. I don't know.
Ugh, I don't like that at all.
Okay. Went a little too dark.
We'll
dial it back.
Yeah. But also like, considering that New York is also known for like rats and crocodiles in the sewer.
Yeah, that's true.
Make some giant rats in the have there be not just obviously you joke, oh, people are the real monsters, but also there should be monsters who are the real monsters.
Especially if we're talking hardcore pollution that shut down a major metropolitan city. Yeah, there should definitely
I feel like
be at least an alligator.
Yeah, or ROTUSs for sure.
Well, okay, what is a ROTUS?
Rodents of unusual ROUSs. Rodents of unusual size? I don't think they exist.
Oh. I don't know. I don't know. I've seen a few New York rats eating a whole pizza.
I'm doing a Princess Bride reference.
I haven't seen Princess Bride in like probably 15 years. I need to revisit that one.
It holds up. I recommend it.
I'm ashamed of that, actually, because it's got such a pop culture reference now. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm starting to fall behind on that one.
Don't worry about it.
Anyway, Escape from New York.
But yes, Escape from New York.
I'd also like to pitch that the kind of, we have the Duke of New York, right, who's kind of like, he's leader of the gang of gangs, essentially. And if we're going to go New York, I think he should have taken over Empire State Building, just because that's such an iconic New York thing that's still there, still standing.
Yeah.
I think he should definitely kind of rule from, the 88th floor up there, and I think that would be kind of cool.
I agree. I like the idea of the Duke having control of the Empire State Building, and then the Brain just having the Chrysler Building.
Yeah, it's not as cool, but sure.
Yeah, if you're into Art Deco.
Yeah, preserve a little bit of it and spray paint over the rest.
It's fine. You were going to be the tallest building, and the Empire State Building was like, hey, surprise, we've got an antenna. Who even remembers?
Yeah, who cares about that now? There's wood in the Chrysler Building from extinct trees, and
yeah,
we got that, right?
And that's why I think it'd be fun to have the Brain there. So it's like the Brain kind of runs a rival gang, but it's a rival gang that is entirely subservient to the Duke.
Yeah, I think that gang should probably be more of like we're playing the long game of, yes, we are paying tribute to the Duke, but we're being smart about it. We know that he's going to need this and that, and we can play that card right now, but really, we run this bitch,
Yeah. It's the intelligent, the Duke wants this, so we'll give him something related to that, but not the thing, because the thing is what gives us power, and the Duke's just like, if I need to, I'll just go take it. But they're
sure,
busy.
We'll play this game.
They're having some fun, and they're out of my hair.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not interfering, then we're cool. We're cool. Especially the map. The map of the bridge was the big kind of.
So with that in mind, especially if we're just firing people into jail, what do we want to do instead of that? Because I have a pitch, but I'm interested to hear what you were thinking. Instead of firing people into jail? No. What, like, if we're firing people into jail and there is no bridge?
Oh, I see what you mean. How are they going to get out?
Yeah, what is the Duke's plan? What's he trying to do?
Oh, that's a good one. I hadn't thought that far ahead.
Because frankly, the landmines on the bridge I thought was dumb because it's like, oh, every time you find an exploded car, don't go under it.
Yeah, it definitely kind of felt like a easy way out, if you will. You know, an easy danger, easy booby trap to kind of
and also because they're like literally a metal detector, and they would have been okay.
That's true. That is very true.
And then it somehow blows the cab in half.
Yeah, that was a bit. and it was obviously a very controlled explosion too. I mean, look, it was a low budget movie. It was, I think, $7 million.
I mean, so. they stretched that money pretty far. Like, it looked like a high budget movie.
It did. It looks really good, even today. Like, some of the matte paintings, we got to talk about the talent that this movie kind of bore, because those matte paintings were all done by James Cameron. And there's a lot of other talent that came out of this movie. Anyway, we don't have to. We're on a roll here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to redirect things. All right. So my quick pitch on how they get out, I would say the raft. I would say they build a raft or find a boat and try to go across this horribly polluted river that could also potentially be mined.
Interesting. That works. You don't get much drama as heightened as a raft.
That's very true, especially in a polluted river that could potentially be eating away the bottom of the raft, or
that could work. I think that should be their first plan, because here's my idea for the stupid plan that they shouldn't have to do, and it becomes their last resort.
Okay, great. I'm happy to hear it.
Because they get fired into Manhattan Island off of like this military grade super cannon. I would like it if the Duke is constructing like a cobbled together sheet metal also cannon that will either fire them back out of New York or explode. Or both, which is what it will likely end up doing.
Which, to add drama onto that, I do think that we should add like some test subjects. You know, maybe Brain is building this return fire cannon for him, and that's why he's not on his back for stuff, because he's helping him with this cannon. Yeah. And I think there should like, be
the Duke is a cannon's just like a big tube with like gunpowder at the end, or like some sort of combustible thing,
explosive. Yeah.
But what Brain provides is the pod inside, something that can actually take the force, like. Brain figured out the formula for the goo inside that holds everything in stasis.
Sure, or the high plush seats or something that keep people. I like that idea, and I think it should be almost in a weirdly quasi North Korea kind of way of they keep testing it and it keeps falling short.
Yeah.
So they're always launching people off that are gonna get over the wall, and it kind of winds up just in this polluted river.
I also really like the idea of there's a bunch of people like dead splatted that are failed attempts, and they have markers not marking the death, but it's just like, oh yeah, too much gunpowder.
Yeah, that one went a little too short. So we need to pull back on the amount of frunium that we put in it, or whatever the hell.
This one, the pod was too heavy. These are bodies. I mean, they'll be gone by morning. The flag's more important because it lets us keep track.
Almost like paint splatter where it hits or something, and they can see it. They can see it from the top of the Empire State Building.
And we also get the added bonus of like they're the people who it's a punishment to get put into the testing thing because you will die. But then also there's people who like it's my only chance off of this island. I'll take it.
If I make it, I make it.
Yeah.
So better than dying and becoming someone's dinner, I guess. Yeah. So,
Yeah, something goofy like that. And so that's why I think they should do the raft first, and that's the failed attempt.
Sure.
And then something big, grand, and dramatic that draws them back in. Like literally
Off of the raft, or they have to go back for the tape or CD or...
I was even going to say, like, the dude with the spiky teeth could be standing on a nearby building and can harpoon the raft. So now the raft is sinking, so, like, either they get poisoned by the water or they desperately have to get back to the city.
Yeah, I like that. And then we can lose somebody in there, too, I think.
Yeah.
Instead of everybody dying in the last 5 minutes of the movie, I think there could definitely be a casualty in that moment.
Yeah. And one of them, she didn't need to die. Maggie didn't need to, like, kill herself because Brain was dead. Like, the whole arc of her character was, yeah, the Duke gave her to Brain as payment for something.
Yeah,
and then
as
she
was
was
a sex toy, essentially.
Yeah, and then she was completely devoted to him. And I'm like, I feel like she'd be looking for any way to stab him in the back, and or she's the real Brain, which is, by the way, what I think we should do.
That is the exact direction I went with it.
Cool.
Anyway, I also think that yeah, she should have made it. She was definitely one of my favorite characters. They were great as a duo, but
yeah.
Maggie was one of my favorites.
And she either was or became John Carpenter's wife, right?
At the time they were married, yeah.
Yeah. So it's all a bunch of pairs.
Well, they are. They were all friends making these movies.
Yeah, which is kind of amazing and beautiful.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, really. Donald Pleasance was buddies with John Carpenter. Kurt Russell was buddies with John Carpenter. They were all just pals who were like, let's go make this weird ass movie.
I mean, that's the best way to make any sort of movie like this, or any sort of movie in general. Just like doing a project with all your friends. I mean, that's why we're out here.
Exactly, and it's a very collaborative space when you do it with your friends.
Yeah.
It really is.
Love it. What other things do we need to talk about in terms of, like, plot? Because we talked about, like, kind of the world, but we haven't really talked about Snake Plissken at all.
I largely think Snake Plissken should probably remain close to what he was in this film. Just kind of a anti-hero who doesn't give a shit about anybody.
Yeah, I will also say this. I did not do it. This is not a gender swap I did. Like, I left Snake Plissken as a dude.
Same here.
Just kind of like, kind of a... But, like, his story of being, like, someone in the military. So here's how I would alter it in terms of, like, because we kind of, like, it's a military guy, but then he, like, robbed the Federal Reserve. It's like, oh, no, he's a military guy, came back, and because he served in the military, lost his house, lost his job, lost this, lost that, because the United States does not take care of its veterans. So I want to take that to the nth degree of, like, recruited as an 18-year-old because the United States loves sending teenagers to die overseas.
Exactly.
And, like, somehow he was a hero and he managed to make it back. And then all of the promises that he went overseas for were completely unfulfilled because the United States never actually expected him to make it back.
Yep, I am 100% on board with that. And I believe that may have been the idea when this movie was written. Because it was written in the time shortly after the Vietnam.
Yeah.
When all these boys got sent overseas against their will and then came back and had everybody spitting on them. Mm-hmm. Calling them baby killers and stuff, whereas they were pawns. They were essentially pawns in a game of chess.
Yeah.
And came home to, a place they didn't recognize that hated them.
Yeah.
And I think Snake Plissken is a perfect product of that because we've kind of had that happen again, too, with Afghanistan. I know a few veterans who came back and kind of lost everything and had to rebuild. And
yeah, I think we all kind of know people like that, or people suffering from PTSD who there really wasn't the support system that they needed.
Exactly. And while being told that they're, able to have all these amenities given to them, when they get back, they're just, stop holding your hand out, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Which, I know you know this, but, like, for people who are listening who don't know this, the term pull yourself up by your bootstraps is a term that was invented as an impossible thing. Like, the guy who originally said it was like, it's as possible for a poor man to become rich as it is for someone to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, which is something that it is impossible to do, and that's why that sentence was created, and then it stuck around.
Yeah, and it became a weird, like, sticking point, too. It became the thing that all of our parents told us we need to do.
Well, yeah. But yeah, so then with that in mind, why would Snake Plissken go rescue the president?
Again, I think the dangling carrot of the full pardon would help. But I do like the idea of still being the anti-hero of him. I think he says like, I'm going either way. It doesn't matter to me. So give me the damn paper or whatever.
Yeah, that was kind of what I thought. Like, well, I have to be there regardless. I may as well have a thing to do instead of just being bored. But
Yeah.
I also would absolutely give him something in the realm of like, oh, I know they're going to betray me, so I have this ace up my sleeve of, in anticipation of being betrayed. Because that's what I kept expecting, because that's really the movie that should have happened.
Yeah,
And then,
I agree with that, and I do think that betrayal should happen.
Yes.
Somebody on the other side does stop the winch, or whatever, however they wind up getting out.
yeah.
You
I also want to give us something different than some sort of hippie terrorist taking over Air Force One.
Yeah, I don't believe it should be a hippie terrorist, but there's definitely.
I also don't like the idea of it being like I would give it more in the realm of a left-leaning president, though not necessarily like a progressive, is the person who it is. And so I would make it some sort of like Proud Boy who's be like, no, this is what we're gonna do. Hey, that's where I was headed too. But at the same time, I do like the idea of an oppressive president being the one. I mean, no, you know what? I take that back. Let's go with this. I would make it someone like Chuck Schumer.
Yes, and I completely agree with that, because he's definitely somebody who does not deliver on promises.
Yeah.
And I could totally see him being the guy at the end. Well, this nation greatly thanks them for their sacrifice.
I have to do what the people want, and the people want justice.
Exactly.
I have no needs or wants or desires. I am merely a vessel of the people.
Exactly. I do it where the people drag me. And I do feel like that recent clip in the news of the bunch of right-wing guys who tried to kidnap the governor of Michigan.
Yeah.
I feel like we've entered the territory where somebody hijacking Air Force One like that because of their political beliefs could potentially happen. Like, it could be a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So something along those lines of being like a Proud Boy or a ultra right-wing, pundit or something like that, taking the reins and just being like, I'm doing this for the country. It's for the good of the country.
It also could be like, we could do that, or we could do it for like, we can give them a really, really stupid reason to do it. Of like, this president, they were going to release an even bigger version of some sort of gun, and the president said,
no,
we're not banning any guns, but you can't, but this gun with a barrel that is 2% larger, I'm shutting that down. We don't need that anymore. Oh no! So this person this person literally hijacks Air Force One because they could not own a slightly bigger gun than the gun they already own.
That's hilarious, actually, and kind of spot on to where John Carpenter was kind of going with this. I think it's the whole thing. It doesn't really take sides, and that was the charm of Snake Plissken, where he doesn't really have a side, whether you're right wing, left wing. He just fucking hates it all.
Yeah, which I don't love, because like there's the whole Desmond Tutu quote that's going around. I think it's Desmond Tutu. Like if you are neutral, if you are neutral in the face of oppression, that you are taking the side of the oppressor.
That is very true. Yeah, that is very true.
So I don't like pure neutrality. But I also think, like, even if he doesn't want to side with the quote-unquote left, he also could be like, I don't care about the left, but I'm going to take down the right.
Yeah. And I mean, it does kind of look, in the original film, like he is kind of leaning that way anyway.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider the politics at the time that film was made, which was very right-wing and very American. And so...
Yeah.
I'm totally in support of that.
Cool. All right. What other things do we need to talk about in terms of like plot and who our characters are? Who is Cabby? Is Cabby driving a cab, or is Cabby driving an Uber Lyft or something?
I was gonna pitch something like like a Uber driver,
Yeah.
who's
Well, when Prop 22 passed,
I lost everything.
or okay, here's my pitch. So because of the way a lot of those rideshare things are going, people who like move to the country and don't really have much of anything can get deals where they kind of rent a car from the company, and then they make payments on the car by driving and doing these other things, and then by the end of the service, like they end up sometimes buying the car, and so the company makes 3, 4, 5 times as much as the car is actually worth just from the payments and then charging the person for the car at the end. I would love it if like we kind of extrapolate that in the future, and it's cabbies like literally Cabby doesn't own the car owns Cabby.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
And like Cabby's still like, I just have 234 more payments to make.
This baby's all mine.
And then this baby's on. It's just it's a 40-year-old piece of junk.
Yeah, it's like a Chevy Cruze or something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm in full support of that. I think that's hilarious.
Cool.
In terms of backstory, I do think...
Escaped the car, left it on the side of the road. Lived a dark life and then got thrown back in New York, and that car was the only thing waiting for him.
It was my constant. Gives me comfort. I sleep in the trunk sometimes.
It's the only way I can feel close to anything, by being close to myself.
It's cozy back there.
It is.
Yeah, in terms of other characters, I mean... Yeah, there were a kind of a lot of tertiary characters that were great.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't recast that many. Like I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus writer director.
Yeah,
I did do girl in Chock Full O Nuts. I did recast her.
Oh, we have it. Is it ScarJo?
It is not.
Oh, okay. Damn it. I just think it would be funny that ScarJo gets pulled through this Chock Full O Nuts floor. I don't know why.
Yeah, fair. But yeah, so like let's get into casting, because I think we kind of have a sense of like kind of core concepts similar for the movie, but then a little bit more political for today.
Yes, yeah.
So
a little modernizing, a little coloring.
Yeah. Escape from New York 2037.
Exactly. Here we go.
So let's talk about Snake Plissken. Who did you have?
Well, for Snake Plissken, I did try. He was so hard to cast. Because it's so inherently Kurt Russell. And he's attitude. He's kind of a every man for himself, and he's a strong silent type. And I'm not 100% married to this actor, but I went with somebody who we've used before in this. I went with Michael B. Jordan to play Snake Plissken.
Yeah, I thought you might.
Yeah.
I definitely considered Michael B. Jordan. I feel like Michael B. Jordan is trying to have like a career shift in that like he's played a bunch of villains. Now he would like to play a hero. And so this is kind of a good intermediary like transition. Like you think he's the villain, but really he's the hero.
Absolutely. He's definitely got an anti-hero vibe to him. Especially I went for him because of his character Killmonger.
Of course.
Who really was kind of... he thinks he's the hero.
Yeah. I mean, everyone thinks they're the hero. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's what makes a great villain.
Yep. I think Michael B. Jordan is a great choice. I got nothing against Michael B. Jordan.
Okay. Who did you cast?
I went with someone who is a little bit lesser known, who's kind of like, but is kind of developing a presence in action movies. I mean, he was in Prometheus, he's in Spider-Man Homecoming, and he's also the star of the recent movie Upgrade.
Oh, okay.
I went with an actor named Logan Marshall Green.
Yes, I know him. I loved Upgrade.
And I haven't seen it, but it's one of those movies that everyone I know who's seen it really likes it, and I really want to watch it, and I just haven't done it yet.
I loved it, and we'll get into Upgrade a little later because I pulled someone else in from Upgrade.
Oh, interesting. That's fun. And so that's kind of the idea I had of like someone who has this combat experience, but also is an action star in the same way that Michael B. Jordan is. Like, I think they're both good choices for the same reason. And it's just different sort of characters, like different style. And like, I picked Snake Plissken just because, or not Snake Plissken, Logan Marshall Green for the exact same reasons that Michael B. Jordan works of like, they can also do the comedy. Like they have kind of that wry sense of humor and they can kind of lean into the jokes.
And at the same time, it's totally believable that he could beat the hell out of anybody in the room.
Yeah,
totally believable that he could be a war hero. Just kind of that. Both of them have that kind of rugged manliness to them, but also really dark sense of humor.
Yeah, absolutely. They're good. I like them both. We'll come back. Since these are both great, whoever has the least other things will get Snake.
All right, sounds good.
Fair enough.
Sounds like a plan.
The next character I have is Hawk, the Warden. Someone we haven't talked about at all.
Yeah.
Even though he's Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Even though he's kind of just this character who's just there to be like antagonistic, to be like, yeah, you're gonna go do the job, aren't you, Bliskin? Call me Snake. All right, Snake, you get out of there. Call me Bliskin.
All right, fine. Whatever. Make up your mind.
Yeah.
No, he's definitely that. Almost like a cheerleader. He's just kind of there to be a cheerleader.
He's there to kind of like give us a sense of the stakes and what else is going on in the outside world.
Yes. Yeah.
Weirdly enough, he's the man in the chair.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's exactly who he is in this film. And he was a hard one to kind of cast too, because Lee Van Cleef was such a choice.
Yeah.
So I almost kind of went in a weird parallel to him. With mine. Do you want to go first? Sorry.
Sure, I'm happy to. I also went on a weird parallel of I sort of tried to make him a little bit more bumbling, but also like capable of having that streak of cruelty, but mostly just like yeah, man, this is a fucked up situation, but this is what you got to do. Nothing I can do about it.
Is what it is, man. Here you go.
Yeah, and so
I got your back, kind of.
Basically. So that's why I wanted to go with Dax Shepard.
Ah, okay. Interesting pull for that role.
Yeah.
I went in a different direction.
Please.
Completely. And it a little bit had to do with the casting choice of Michael B. Jordan, but it's not exclusive.
Fair.
I went with somebody who was an Oscar winner for playing a general. And is kind of more of a hard ass. I went with Louis Gossett Jr. for Hawk. Definitely, he's aged. Could totally be a kind of oppressive warden, military leader when he has to be.
I'm looking him up because I don't necessarily know him
really
offhand.
Yeah.
I don't know the name. I'm bad with names, but like I don't even know if I recognize his face. What would I have seen him in?
So most recently, he was in Watchmen, the Watchmen television series. He was really big in the 80s. His big hit was Iron Eagle. He was the general in that. His Oscar was An Officer and a Gentleman. He was in the original Punisher film. Let's see. I'm trying to find other credits. I know he was the alien in Enemy Mine. He was in Jaws 3D. He was in Roots. He
has one episode of Psych, which I think was the season I did not watch.
Oh man.
I don't think I've seen anything he's been in. Like, I'm happy to trust your judgment because obviously you know what you're doing, and based on everything and the fact that he has 14 projects in development, he's clearly very good.
Yeah, he's definitely kind of a militaristic. He's a great general actor. Played a general a number of times, and he's also. And I bring him back around because of who he was in The Watchmen.
Great.
Recently, he definitely is kind of a double crosser. He's great at playing both sides of the fence, and I think that's what Houck does. Houck has an understanding of what Snake Plissken is going through, but he's also a bureaucrat. So
he knows the system is broken, but that's okay with him because he's on top of the system.
Exactly. So
yeah,
he's playing it to the best of his abilities.
Cool. I think Louis Gossett Jr. is a great choice for that then. Let's go with that.
All right, great.
So the next person I have is Cabby.
Same.
Because Cabby's great, is super lovable, and you know Cabby's going to die, and you know you're going to be sad about it.
Mm-hmm. But he really is the best character in this film.
Yeah, just making the best of a bad situation. Just great.
Yeah, just kind of like, well, this is life, and here we go.
Well, what are you gonna do? Just drive my cab.
Yep.
So who did you have for Cabby?
you might laugh at this a little bit, and I'm not 100% married to it, but Cabby, because he is the best character in this film, and he is so distinctly Ernest Borgnine, like I could not wrap my head around anybody who would be spectacular Cabby other than Danny DeVito.
Oh, wow. That is a choice.
Yeah, it sure is. I know. But the more I thought about it, the more I was kind of like, I'd watch it.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not married to it. It was just, it was a hard cast to recast Ernest Borgnine.
Fair. So my idea was that like the Ernest Borgnine character in this movie, the Cabby character is like the only character in this entire movie who's having fun. And it's almost like he's in a different movie from everyone else. Just collecting his little cassette tapes and going on his little adventures. And so that's why I kind of want someone who's also sort of in their own little world.
Okay.
Who we just like that you're here. And so that's why I thought it'd be fun to have Cabby be Ron Funches.
Yeah, I know the name. I need to look him up. He's
been doing a lot of voiceover stuff recently. He was a voice on Infinity Train, which I watched recently, and my God, is it good. But he's also most recently been the voice of King Shark in the Harley Quinn show. Yeah, I see. I've got him pulled up here. He's also perfect. Yeah. Yeah, he's a stand-up comedian. He's great. Mm-hmm. I love him so much. Can we go with Ron Funches?
Oh, please. Yeah, no, he's great. I think he's a great Cabby.
Then the next person I have is Girl in Chock Full O Nuts.
I did not recast Girl in Chock Full O Nuts, so
she was a throwaway character, but this movie has one woman in it, so I wasn't going to not recast the only other speaking woman.
That's fair, totally.
So, I don't necessarily want to give her a larger role, so I wanted to go with someone who would find it funny to have the role that she has, to literally be the character named Girl in Chock Full O Nuts, because she says her name in the movie, but then she's credited as Girl in Chock Full O Nuts. And I just wanted to go with someone who'd be like, yeah, this is so weird, I'll do that, that's funny.
Yeah, sure, why not? This is hilarious. So who is it?
Kristen Ritter.
Oh, great, yeah. She's perfect.
Kristen Ritter of Jessica Jones, but more like her character in Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23.
Yes, yeah. No, she is perfect for this, for a Girl in Chock Full O Nuts.
Yeah.
I could see her being pulled through the floor now.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, damn, that's Kristen Ritter. She's going to be in the... Oh, she's dead.
Oh, there she goes.
Yeah, well,
get her for a day. And
yeah. Yeah, it's just a goofy thing.
Yeah.
So I just thought it'd be fun.
No, that's great. I'm in full support of that. She was perfect choice.
Excellent. Then that brings me to Brain.
All right.
Brain.
Let's talk about Brain.
So obviously we have to go with Maurice LaMarche, right?
Oh, no. I went in a completely different direction.
That's a joke. You don't need to look up who that is.
Oh, okay.
Maurice LaMarche is a voiceover actor who is the voice of the Brain in Pinky and the Brain.
Oh, that's why I know the name. Okay, I was like, I know the name, but give me a minute here.
He's not an on-screen person necessarily. He's the voice of Brain.
Okay.
So when we were talking about doing the characters, we kind of talked about switching around, making it. So I kind of went with the expected. I gender swapped both Brain and Maggie.
So did I. Yeah.
Because it's more interesting that way, and also you get to play around with the expected gender norms of you think it's gonna be Maggie or whatever we name the person as. Maggie is still fine. I don't care. And then it's like, oh no. Brain's the one. This one is the actual Brain. She's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I thought a fun person to go for would be Alfre Woodard. And also because she gives good aghast face. And one of Brain's big jobs in the movie as it is just reacting to things of like, here we go. I can't believe this is happening. And Alfre Woodard would be really good with that. Because she's been for people who don't know, we've used her on the show before, but she's been in a bunch of different things. Star Trek First Contact, she's in Luke Cage, she's in American Violet. She's great.
I'm looking her up. I just need to see a picture. Sorry.
Please.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she is great. She was in Star Trek.
Yes. Yeah. But tell me who you had for Brain.
I went in kind of an opposite direction, and you'll have to go with me on this, just because she is both brains and can stand on her own 2 feet, but is also kind of quiet for the character of Brain. I went with Neve Campbell. And mostly because she is close to the age of where Harry Dean Stanton was was at this moment when he made Escape from New York.
I mean, that's a good enough reason.
Yeah. I thought that she's held her own in a lot of action flicks. Mm-hmm. And I thought she would be not only good as the strong, kind of silent female type, but also could hold her own in a gunfight or a fight with the Indians.
And also very much is someone who would run the intellectual gang. Yeah, I'm perfectly happy to go with Neve Campbell.
Okay.
Talk to me about your Maggie.
So my Maggie, like I said, we gender swapped. I thought it would be funny to be kind of the opposite of who Maggie was in this, which is kind of, or not the opposite, rather a 1-to-1 but gender swap. Sorry,
sure, I
got that wrong. Which was really just a sex pot role for Adrienne Barbeau. She held her own in there, but yeah, they blatantly say the Duke gave her to Brain to keep him happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I went with kind of a hunkier action guy. I went with Chris Hemsworth, but I am not married to him. Yeah, I knew you were going to
say that.
Yeah.
As soon as he said, I went with a hunky guy. Chris Hemsworth, all right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got Thor in there. I share a birthday with Chris Hemsworth, so I'm...
Clearly. It means you're the same person.
Mm-hmm. We are.
Birthday buddies share a special bond like that.
It's weird. It's really weird.
I mean, that's a fun idea, and I like the idea. I kind of went with a similar idea, but not someone necessarily who's as A-list. Mm-hmm. I went with someone who's been in Blade and Gotham and Vikings.
Oh, okay.
I went with, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Donal Logue.
Oh, yeah. I believe it's Donal Logue.
Donal Logue.
Yeah. Oh, man. He'd be great, too.
Just because I kind of went with someone who very easily also could have been given, but is also like can do a little bit of the action, but is mostly just like completely devoted because he's 54.
Right.
It's mostly just like, whatever you need, I'm here to help. Let's get this thing done.
And he's kind of a putz, too, a little bit.
A little bit of a putz, but also can do kind of like the stoic assistant thing.
Yeah, he absolutely could. Yeah, I have nothing against either of those.
I think Donal Logue would be a fun number 2 for Neve Campbell.
He's definitely funny in that role. He could definitely be hilarious in that. Dax Shepard would be good in that, too. Just you brought him up earlier. Wrong. He would kind of be a fun Maggie.
The only reason I would go with Donal Logue over Dax Shepard is just because they're roughly the similar age, and if you're going to be implying, may as well.
Yeah.
And also because I think it's funny to have a couple of like mid-50s people running around like, we run stuff around here. No, you don't. Oh.
Yeah, that's hilarious. No, I think Donal Logue is hilarious. I absolutely, cool. Yeah.
Cool,
he's great.
Love it. Then my turn to go first. Let's talk about the Duke.
All right.
So, weirdly enough, it's going to sound weird to say this, but it was important to me that the Duke not be black.
No, it's important to me too.
Because it's the whole it's scary black man. He's in charge again.
There was a reason why I went with a black lead and not a black bad guy.
Yeah.
Just because it's really, we've seen that trope so many times. And as much as I love Isaac Hayes, and I love Isaac Hayes in this movie, it's a dated trope that needs to go away.
It is. I agree. That said, I went with someone who's also extremely well known, very recognizable. People will be like, oh yeah. Because, he's been in Lost and Hawaii Five-0 and as a voice in She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. I went with Daniel Day Kim.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
Daniel Day Kim is great. He's very, can definitely be very imposing when he needs to be.
Bring in the sinister intentions.
Exactly. Yeah, I like him a lot. I think I like him better than my choice.
Who'd you have?
My choice, I went with somebody who has played both roles in action films, both big bads and heroes. I went with Jason Statham as the Duke.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
We both cast A-lister people.
He's kind of an obvious choice, but I personally like Daniel Day Kim better.
One of my favorite roles Jason Statham plays are the roles he's starting to play more now, where it's yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the villain, but also here's a quirky one line.
Yeah, exactly. The kind of asshole almost.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying that niche he's falling into, and I don't think that works for the Duke.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
Because I feel like he'd have to just be like, I'm the transporter. Like that version of Jason Statham.
Like he'd be hiding around wraparound shades the entire time.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, let's go with Daniel Day Kim.
Please. Oh, that's a great choice. That's great.
So the only other part I have cast is the president. Do you have anyone else beyond that?
I don't. I tried to think of somebody who could do Romero, who was the spiky-haired guy.
Yeah, the number 2.
And I couldn't, because that guy's just so freaking great in everything.
I mean, the obvious answer is, let me pull up the name of this actor. At this point, he might even be too old for this role, but I feel like the obvious answer is Matthew Lillard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that might be a little too on the nose, though.
But I feel like it's more fun if it's someone you don't recognize, and you're just like, what is with this guy?
That guy's bizarre, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
like,
that is that character.
And I feel like those are sorts of the characters that Matthew Lillard plays, but now we all recognize Matthew Lillard, so you can't get away with it anymore.
Yeah, for me, I just feel like I'd be watching Shaggy the entire time. So
yeah.
No offense to Matthew Lillard, he's a great guy.
Yeah, and honestly, and I don't think he's intimidating enough, but like,
yeah.
Like someone who, I feel like we need an unknown.
Oh, totally. But I couldn't figure one out.
I didn't even try. Yeah. But I went first for the Duke, right? So tell me who you had for the president.
For the president, I did go for somebody who I thought could play an oppressive right-wing president, but who could also be a oppressive left-wing president. Because I kind of felt like
I did the same.
That's the way Escape from New York was going, and he is a little bit of an A-lister. But I went for Gary Oldman as the president.
That's a good choice. I like that. That works in my brain.
Yeah. I definitely feel like he's somebody who could go out like our current president and be like, I'm a macho man, and then gets in a situation in New York where he's totally helpless and like all macho man BS went out the window. And
see, I would have said it the other way. I would have set it up as, I'm likable, everyone's friend Gary Oldman. And it's like, oh, well, clearly you have to go rescue this guy. He's a good president. He's a hero. We all like him. And then just over the course of the movie, you realize just how not a good person, how terrible and shitty he actually is.
He's just totally a prick, and it's all...
Yeah, and that's the shift.
It's all a show.
The Gary Oldman shift that I would be like, yes, that.
See? We could go either way with it. That's what I mean. And I actually like that a little bit better. I like your version much better. Because
mine is not that at all. I went like, this guy is clearly like, I don't think we trust him, which is why I think we need to go with Gary Oldman. But like, it's like,
well,
yes, but also you're up to something.
And with our current situation, though, that is who we have as our leader. So,
right. But this is a little bit more. This is more sitting in the chair, stroking the white cat kind of Bond villain, as opposed to Goldfinger.
Which is hilarious because the original president in Escape from New York is played by Donald Pleasance, who was Blofeld in...
Oh, was he really?
In one of the Sean Connery James Bonds.
Good, amazing.
Yeah.
Which is why I went with Michael Ironside.
Oh, man. Yeah. Michael Ironside's pretty great, actually.
Yeah,
that is a great choice.
But like if we go with the Gary Oldman style that I said of like, we don't immediately reveal that this is a bad guy. Like if it's Michael Ironside, you're like,
I know.
Obviously we can't trust him. Because Michael Ironside is great. Like, but honestly, for the way that we've kind of constructed this, he also probably would have been better casting for Hawk, although we are sticking with Louis Gossett Jr.
Yeah, he would be great for Hawk, actually. Yeah, but
so I think like we have to go with Gary Oldman.
I agree with that, and I like the idea that he is that politician like Chuck Schumer who has this public adoration, this public view of like, man, this guy's on our side. He's great, and then you get up close with him, and he's that cold asshole at the end who is like, I'd like to. This nation thanks them for their great sacrifice. You know?
And at the end of the day, it's just staying in power. And you will say the popular thing that is good and is actually the right thing to do, but only because it'll keep you in power.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, you're still going to protect your rich billionaire interests.
Yep. Well, his rich billionaire interests, right?
Yes.
'Cause that's what the game is.
So that leaves me with 4 and you with 3, which means that for Snake Plissken, we're going to go with Michael B. Jordan.
Okay.
Which brings us to writer and director.
All right.
So you went first last. So my writer is lesser known. I went with this writer specifically because she's kind of like on her way up.
Okay.
She is, most recently, she was like one of the writers on Umbrella Academy, which I think really does kind of the contained action story, but building character very, very well. But she's also no stranger to doing kind of like tongue-in-cheek comedy, or at least kind of has that background, because she comes from the comedy world when she's worked with Key and Peele. She was the assistant to Keegan-Michael Key on Keanu. Like, so she kind of has that background to it, and like I said, she's very much on her way up, and that's why they kind of like give these kind of movies to people like her.
Sure.
So her name is Erin Michelle Williams. Erin is spelled Aeryn.
Oh, well, that would be why I can't find her.
Yep.
I am not familiar. I have not seen the Umbrella Academy.
Oh man, you need to watch Umbrella Academy.
You're not the first person to tell me that. It's on my list. It's just I haven't gotten to it yet.
Fair.
But I'm in support of her. I hired a writer-director.
Oh.
So I don't have a writer.
Fair enough. So tell me who your writer-director is.
My writer-director was somebody we had mentioned before on this podcast. He also was kind of a parallel to John Carpenter. He got his start writing horror movies, started making his own films, and handles both science fiction, dystopian science fiction, and horror pretty well, stylized way. And he's the director of Upgrade. I went with Lee Wannell.
Cool.
As writer-director, but just as easily can be in the director's chair. I was almost kind of looking at, like, who is John Carpenter, the next John Carpenter, and he's definitely the closest, in my opinion, in my humble opinion.
Director of Saw, Upgrade, Cooties, Insidious.
Yeah, Cooties is great. Cooties is a lot of fun.
Do you know what one of his upcoming projects is?
I don't.
He has 3 projects in development. One of them is a TV series called Upgrade. He's also the writer and director on something called Wolfman.
Oh, great.
And he's also going to be the director of a movie in pre-production called Escape from New York.
Really?
He is the director. So not only are you correct...
I'm correct in the real world, too?
you are correct in the real world, which unfortunately means we can't go with him, because that's generally my rule.
That's fair. No, that's totally fine.
But we can't go with him because you're so right. Like, that's what's happening. Like, you are literally as correct as it is possible to be.
I mean, that's cool, but all right. That's fair. We don't have to use him. I've got another guy in the chamber that I actually thought was directing.
I want to use him. I was going to give that to you because, like, I think he's potentially better than who I have, but, like...
if he's already doing it, then we need to...
He's literally already doing it.
So okay.
That's amazing.
We'll strike him then. Then I'll go with Robert Rodriguez, because I would also like to see a Robert Rodriguez Escape from New York. I think that would be fun. I thought that he was originally attached to this remake that's been in development hell for 20 years now, but I had no idea. that Lee Wannell was attached to a recent remake.
He's going to direct it.
Good for him. I'll see that movie. I like his
absolutely.
movies. All right, so anyway.
I mean, I'll be honest, I don't love Sin City.
Yeah, Sin City wasn't all that great, but I do love his other films. I'm a big fan of From Dusk Till Dawn. It was great. I liked his Grindhouse movie too, the Planet Terror. He just has that kind of drive-in vibe to him, which is fun, which I think could handle this material well.
Condemned criminal Snake Plissken is dispatched to the Isle of Manhattan, now a quarantine danger zone, to rescue a female U.S. senator in danger.
Ah.
I hate it because that means that they're going to force a romantic subplot between Snake Plissken and the female U.S. senator in danger.
I also hated it. I also hate that. Yeah, to be fair, in the sequel, the person he was going after was the president's daughter, and they didn't seem to have a romantic at all. There was no romantic overtones between them. But that was also a John Carpenter film. So
yeah. So let me tell you about my director.
Please.
So my director also is kind of someone coming up. She is the director of Love and Basketball. She directed some Old Guard. She directed something called Shots Fired. Her name is Gina Prince Blythewood.
1 second. I've not heard of her. And what is her strengths? And why do you think she would make a great Escape from New York?
Well, she's going to be, like, she's directed, like, kind of TV, drama, action things. Like, she's a director for one of the episodes of Cloak and Dagger.
Oh, okay.
And, she directed an episode of the Bernie Mac show. So, like, she kind of understands, like, the comedy. And she directed an episode of Everybody Hates Chris.
Okay.
And she is... I don't remember anymore because I did this list a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
Gotcha.
And I literally pulled her because I found her in a list that was talking about why she was so great.
Oh, okay.
And why she's like an action star who needs to know better.
I do remember Love and Basketball. I liked that movie a lot. I don't know.
It's not similar at all in any way to Escape from New York. And I don't remember why I went with her. It's because she worked on stuff like Felicity and South Central, and it's like a little bit more.
South Central was a little gritty.
Yeah, gritty action, like getting to know the people who live in gritty action things. And she's also the director of The Old Guard, which is the new action movie with Charlize Theron, which stars somewhat older people, because that's the whole purpose of the movie. That's why I went with her. It's because she directed The Old Guard.
Oh yeah, this looks very Escape. Like an escape movie of some kind.
Yeah, my premise, my understanding of the premise of The Old Guard is it's literally like they're all immortal. They've been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and they kind of like push the world to go one way or the other. And they now must fight to keep their identity a secret, just as an unexpected new member is discovered.
Interesting. More like Highlander than...
It is a little bit. I was watching a video about it. It was like kind of based off of this old Japanese movie.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's why I went with her, because she directed The Old Guard.
Yeah, The Old Guard looks like a lot of fun. I've just been cruising through stills from it. Yeah, look, I'm full support of her.
Yeah, and I'm also perfectly happy to go with Robert Rodriguez or anyone else. But like in the back of my head, that's kind of why I came up with it. I mean, the unfortunate thing is that because your choice is so good
on the nose, yeah,
it literally you hit a bullseye.
So here's the thing with that, though, is this supposed Escape from New York remake, like I said, it's been in development hell since 2008. So I have always been of the opinion to not pay attention to it because it's not going to happen.
I mean, that's fair. I wish I could see more information about this.
Yeah, I know. The last I heard was they were talking to Kurt Russell's son, Wyatt Russell, to play Snake, which they do look identical. But again, I'm not really interested in seeing.
Yeah,
but
its pre-production status was updated February 2nd of 2019, so that's well over a year ago.
Relatively, recent. It could be.
I mean, I'm happy to still go with Leigh Whannell as our director.
Okay.
And then just because it was so perfect and because you didn't know, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. All right. Because I do think he's probably the best suited director out there now to make an Escape from New York film.
Clearly, the industry agrees.
Yeah. Look at me, knowing the climate of B movies.
Yeah. But I will say, let's go with Erin Michelle Williams as our writer, and then she just works with this guy as the director.
Sure. I'm in full support of that.
All right. So then we've got our Escape from New York 2037. Full cast and everything.
Yep.
Unless I'm missing something, because you said you wanted to talk about like some of the production and like, did you have someone to do like the matte paintings and the everything?
No, I don't. I find it fascinating that there were so many people that worked on this movie that went on to do so many other things that are in the kind of nerd lexicon. That's all.
Fair.
I didn't really have anybody to replace them. It was just, like almost everybody who worked on this movie went on to have their own place in the world. So
Good.
That's all.
Well, then let me at least tell you about the people who will be working on ours.
Great. I'm in.
We have Escape from New York 2037, starring Michael B. Jordan as Snake Plissken. Hawk will be Louis Gossett Jr. Cabby will be Ron Funches. Girl in Chock Full O Nuts will be Kristen Ritter. Brain will be Nev Campbell. Maggie will be Donal Logue.
Donal Logue, yeah.
Donal Logue. And then the Duke will be Daniel Day Kim, and the President will be Gary Oldman. All of this will be written by Aaron Michelle Williams with help and direction from Lee Wanell.
Great.
And that is our Escape from New York.
2037.
2037.
Oh, wait, I do think we should make an offer on our film to have John Carpenter come back and do the score, like he did for the last Halloween film.
Is John Carpenter still alive?
He is, yeah. Yeah.
My understand. I for some reason I thought he died in the last couple of years, and just like because I know that he's just been kind of like out and about making music. I assumed that was a job you wanted for this movie.
Oh well, I'm happy to take that offer from John Carpenter. Then I'm more than happy to do the music for this movie.
I mean, if John Carpenter wants to, that's fine. But I was going to give you first right of refusal.
Oh, great. Well, poor John Carpenter's out of a job then. If that's the case.
I mean. I hope someday he's able to recover.
Yeah, I'm sure financially he will at some point. Don't worry. They're still making another Halloween film, so he'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm certain of it. But yeah, we did it.
Great.
We made it. We remade a movie.
Yeah.
Tell me about what other things you want to promote and plug and all that sort of stuff.
Well, we haven't been able to do much of the filmmaking game because, we're in a global pandemic. So my focus has been music. I've got one of the scores I did coming out around Halloween on both iTunes and SoundCloud, remastering them personally this time, so they sound good.
So this is coming out in November. Do you want to tell people what that's called or what they can do to look it up and find it?
Right, my apologies. We forgot this was coming out after Election Day. You can find it on iTunes or SoundCloud. Will be the Swipe Left soundtrack is the first one coming out. Just music I did for the film I made, Swipe Left. And then subsequently, we'll have every 2 weeks, I'll have another album out for just scores that I've done over the past few years. The last one being Stark Raving Actress, which just had its virtual premiere at a film festival that I didn't write down, so I can't I can't remember off the top of my head. But that one was just one I did the score for.
That's exciting.
So, yeah.
So it's a soundtrack to Swipe Left.
Yeah, coming out on around Halloween. Should be available when you hear this on either iTunes or SoundCloud under my name, Kevin Mosteller.
Cool, love it. And what social media do you want people to follow?
You can follow me on Instagram. I don't really use Twitter anymore. Every now and then I do. It's kind of a cesspool. You can find me on Instagram at Kev Mosteller. It is at KevMosteller.
Great.
Nailed it. Yay.
Nailed it. First take.
Yeah.
If you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter, cesspool or not. That's where I live. At Sam Gasch, SamGasch, or you can follow the podcast at Ideal Remake on Twitter or Instagram, but mostly Instagram. Or join us on Facebook at Ideal Remake or Ideal Remake Podcast. Or as a way of celebrating something in the election, I hope. God damn it, I hope.
Here's hoping.
Yeah. Find some podcasts you like and go on Apple Podcasts and leave them some 5-star reviews. It doesn't have to be ours, although that would be very nice. But yeah, go online, leave some podcast reviews. It really helps us. And gosh, I'll think you're swell.
You'll forever have my admiration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then in that case, let's end the way that I've been ending these shows. Kevin, what is your favorite quote from the movie Escape from New York?
Call me Snake.
All right, Snake, what do you want to do next? Call me Bliskin.
Call me Pliskin.
Why does he do that at the end of the movie?
I don't know. I always thought it was like a jab, like a how dare you? Don't call me that. Like fuck you. You know, you don't have the right to call me by.
Yeah, part of me was like, oh, like he's changed now. He doesn't want to go by Snake because that man's dead. He's gonna live a different life now. But part of me is also just like, nah, he's just messing with the guy.
Yeah.
Like whatever he calls him, it's wrong. Call me the other one. He calls him that? Nope, I prefer the other one.
I feel that's probably more plausible than.
And you know what? Full respect. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, let's see. Oh wait, my other favorite quote is, "I don't give a fuck about your war or your president." That's a good one too. Yeah.
That is a good one too.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We did it.
We made it.
Thank you so much. Yay.
Hope you enjoyed Escape from New York 2037.
If you follow the marked lights to the lobby, you can also purchase some snacks.
But remember, if you purchase anything that we deem illegal, the United States Police Force will be waiting for you outside the theater.
I hope you enjoy spending the rest of your life in New York.
Bye. Enjoy Broadway.
All right, I'm stopping the recording now.
All right.